All right. Good evening, folks. Welcome to Monday Night Law here with Kirk's Law Corner. Oh, what is this? March 3rd, 2020, or pardon me, March 4th. My days are mixed up already. It's 3-4. So, March 4th, 2024. Good old Idaho weather here. We've had snow the last couple days. Oh, Lordy. Sometimes you just never know. The last 3 years, technically speaking, we've had snow. I would say last 2 years. This will be year 3. That we've had snow clear up until June. So, say, I don't know, climate change or I don't know, HARP, weather modification, you name it, it's happening. But yeah, weather patterns kind of weird all over the place, ain't it? Uh, well, good evening to everybody out there. Facebook, YouTube, Telegram, Rumble, and Twitter, or X, now called X, formerly known as Twitter. Now get that X paused. See you out there on Rumble. Yep. Thank you. Got hail over there, right? Okay. Okay. Mark over there on Rumble. I see you, brother. You know, kind of current events here is Eager Beaver. Good to see you, brother. Are you? Oh, you're on. You're watching on X there. Okay, cool. So those are coming through. I don't know. Something's going on with the Facebook thing, so I don't know. Comments aren't coming through my Streamlabs, so I don't know what's going on there, or maybe somebody hasn't made a comment yet. But I noticed that last week that it wasn't working. So we'll see. Give it a minute here. But usually CC from Alaska says hi and talk about the weather. What's the room temperature in Alaska up there? But yeah. Oh, there's Facebook. There we go. Cat. There's a comment there from Facebook. Yeah, I wonder if there was just a glitch in the matrix last week then. Oh man, it's oh I don't even want to hear it. Who's her back eye from the fam there says out on YouTube says I've got my air on right now here in Indiana. Yeah. But that's okay. You know what? I'm gonna be taking a couple weeks off vacation, and I'm gonna go south where it's warm, and I'm gonna go have some fun. We're gonna go for some Harley bike riding. My mom's boyfriend has offered to take a couple bikes, load up a couple bikes in a trailer, and head down and go see my mom. And I'll stay down there. And of course, we got work to do while we're down there. Do a little bit of reconstruction, remodel stuff, of course. Mom and grandma just never stop. Doesn't matter where they go. You know, always got to be working on something. So I got some countertops and some tile and some painting to do, paint the exterior of the house there. And so that'll be a little bit of work, fun, but I'm taking a break, and I'll be, killing my social media stuff. I mean, I'll still kind of pay attention a little bit, but I can tell you right now, folks, my main focus is going to be staying off of computer and everything. I mean, I bring in my laptop, but I won't have the ability to basically broadcast like I do right now. So I've already tried that once before on my laptop, and it just didn't work. So the Wednesday night workshops, I may still do those. I don't know. I will talk with you folks on Wednesday night and see how you all feel about that. Any one-on-ones through Patreon, I will still be available for those. But other than that, I really want to just shut everything off and take a break from everything. Kind of been, again, burning the candles, burning the both end of a candle right now, and trying to get my appeal stuff prepped and done so I can get that filed before I leave and get that process started. So that's where the question of over here about the status of my case is. Well, it's getting ready to be filed, the notice of appeal and the brief and support. The notice of appeal is pretty much done. I've started to work on the brief part. So little tedious work there, especially with everything that I've challenged, constitutional challenges to the arrest, to defects in the complaint, lack of personal jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction, due process of law. Then you get into the trial by jury, of 6 men without my consent, and then the fact that essentially it wasn't a real trial by jury. And I made those objections in the very beginning of the first alleged fake trial. That none of those people are of my peers. They're not real people of Idaho. These all, and I even asked, well, how did these people get selected? Who selected them? How did this all happen? Nobody had an answer. So therefore, the judge couldn't answer the question of law, how they were selected. And he's supposed to know that, right? He's supposed to answer questions of law, but he couldn't answer that question. Anyways, the double jeopardy clause, which just been informed there was, I think it was Georgia. Somebody had shared with me a thing on that out there. I said, no double jeopardy, guys. You get one chance at a trial. It's either unanimous guilty or it's an acquittal. There is no not guilty. It's either all of them say you're guilty. If one says, no, I'm not quite convinced, I'm not giving my consent, that is an acquittal. Doesn't have to be unanimous, not guilty, because a man doesn't have to prove himself innocent. Burden of proof is on the moving party. You get one chance. So it's already starting to happen out there. So I'm like, kind of feeling bummed that I'm not going to be the first one to challenge that. But nonetheless, I'll be doing it for Idaho. And I need to dig that up, and I'll be citing that in my constitutional challenge. And then the big one. There's two main ones for Idaho here. The entire Idaho Code, which, again, this is Roman civil law. So this is going to affect the whole nation. And then the entire Idaho Constitution, because none of it's lawful. It was not lawfully done, was never approved by Congress. So there's all that good stuff there. So it's quite a huge undertaking here to itemize out all this crap. All the unconstitutional, unlawful, and unconstitutional stuff that's been happening to everybody. Right, I'm not the only one that this has happened to. So if it was just me, then it would be kind of a moot point. Even though hey, well, everybody else is getting a proper trial by jury, grand jury. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. No grand jury indictment. I mean, everything that they're doing is unlawful. Again, most everybody that's here right now has been subjected to the corruption. That's why you're here trying to learn. And I don't know. I don't know of too many people that. Go ahead, speak up right now. Anybody here that's never been subjected to the corruption? Please speak up. Put it in the comments here that you've never been subjected to any governmental corruption. Oh, I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to hold my breath on that one, because I'm pretty damn sure that everybody here has been subjected to the corruption. And if you're one of those that thinks that you've never been subjected to that corruption, I'll just ask you, do you pay taxes? If you pay any kind of taxes, with the exception, I'm not 100% sure yet on that, on the property taxes, because I do believe that is part of how what can be taxed. Okay. So other than that, things like income tax, sales tax, all those other taxes, they're not lawful. There shall be no direct taxes. So the people are not supposed to be directly taxed. You could tax the corporations because they're incorporated into the body politic with a business license, and originally that's how that all worked. A lot of people do not understand this or comprehend and then understand that who the people really are the business owners, the ones that pay taxes, because they're paying the bills for the emoluments of the office of governor and lieutenant governor and the sheriff and all this stuff, right? That's who's supposed to be taxed. And to pay for all the public servants' wages, their profits and gains, the emoluments of their office. We have to address that issue, because how else do they get paid? I mean, let's just go into government de jure for a second. We have a legitimate governor. We have a legitimate sheriff, and we got legitimate county commissioners, and we have legitimate senators and representatives, both state and federal. How are we to pay them? How are they supposed to receive their just compensation? It's a serious question, because this leads into who the people are. The ones having political power to make policy. Oh, wait a minute. It's not law. It's policy. But, nonetheless, I know I get the sentiments. Everybody says, well, property can't be taxed. Well, that's the thing, is that's part of how you pay for your protection. You have land, you have an equitable interest in your land. You want people to help defend that from all things foreign, right? And this goes into being one of the people, a different, like the Law of Nations talks about the inhabitants, that there's a different kind of citizen, which is what our founders, we're settling here. We're declaring that we're settling here, that I'm an inhabitant. And not just a step above an inhabitant, as I own land. And, the militia, which is composed of the body of the people themselves, are duty bound to defend. So how would you propose that you pay for that? So those that own land within the territory are assessed a tax to help defend. Remember, government is supposed to be the true intent of government. One is to secure our rights, which is to defend them. Now, we've gone over Blackstone's commentaries on the law of England with a fine-tooth comb over the last 2 months here. And that first, with the three primary rights, the right of personal security. Okay, well, if I have the right to defend my land, my neighbor has the right to defend his land, well, then we can employ people, essentially, to defend the motherland, at the borders, right? And so how are those people going to get paid, and who should pay that? Okay, and then if you own land, then you should have political rights regarding how your city, your county, your state is ran, and what the scope and authority of public servants are. So I think that's what gives us the equitable interest. When you pay taxes, now you have an equitable interest in the outcome. Like, Kirk's Law Corner LLC. I'm the founder and president. Okay, I have an interest in this thing, and I'm the one that dictates how it works, with the limitations of supposed statutes that would regulate businesses like mine. And then I would have a say in that particular legislation, for damn sure. I would have the right of suffrage. I have a say in what kind of regulations the legislature would make in an attempt to regulate my business. And rightly so. I mean, this is what's going on right now. You've got businesses out there, so-called businesses, and they're involved in, drug dealing, arms dealing, money laundering, selling men, women, and children, slavery, human trafficking. This is part of the stuff that's been coming out, is that they're finding all these different, like LLCs and stuff that are under a parent corporation. And this is where they're laundering their money from things like that. Some of them, they've even okay, well, let's go to this address. Well, you go to the address, but it doesn't actually exist. Or it's an empty building, or there's another business in there. Or it's a house. But this is the crazy stuff. So that's should be a no-brainer there, that we would want to make sure, which Hale versus Hinkle, there's a reserved right in the legislature to do an investigation to see if the corporation has exceeded the laws of its creation. And that's, that's how that should work. No, I don't think property tax is a direct tax. The direct tax is like when you go to buy a candy bar, and the cost of the candy bar is 50 cents. You should be charged 50 cents. But then you've got the governor that comes in there and says, hey, no, like in Idaho, 6%, dude. You owe me 6% of that 50 cents, so 3 cents. Cough it up. Who are you? Get the hell out of here. I'll give you my 2 cents, but not 3. If you're asking for 3, you're going to have a problem. You already got a problem with my 2 cents, but that's just verbal. Anywho, that would be an example of a direct tax. You buy a car. This is like an individual thing, right? Where everybody who owns property gets taxed. Now, I know you could use that the same way as well. Everybody who buys a candy bar gets taxed. But that's an individual direct tax. Now, think about this. Everybody that's just an inhabitant that doesn't actually own any land, maybe they've homesteaded or whatever, that's different. Okay, we're talking like within the city limits, within the county limits. See, and that's the other thing. Not all land in the territory is supposed to be labeled as in the county, right? Or it could be, but like in the forest, as the Magna Carta and some other documents through history would talk about, the people of the forest and that kind of stuff. Those would be the inhabitants. So basically, if you're outside of the city limits, you're just an inhabitant. Okay, so No, Mark. No, I'm talking government de jure, dude, not your de facto crap. Okay? We're talking government de jure here, legitimate government. How are we going to pay the public servants? So this has been in history. The property tax has been there. Okay? It's, even part of how it's supposed to be. As a requirement to run for governor, you're supposed to own a certain amount of land, and you put that land up as collateral so we can, one, when you usurp your power and engage in maladministration and misfeasance and subversion of law, seditious conspiracy to overthrow the law, and treason, that we can come take your land and basically exile them. And then, like Destry likes to bring up, they used to go and burn their houses down, run them out of town. So that would be, in history, the people paid property taxes because you want to defend it. You own the land, essentially, which, technically speaking, we're not supposed to be able to own land in the sense of, because God created it. We can inhabit it. We can residence, as Law of Nations uses the word residence. Okay, so there's a lawful term from international law of nations. So, these reading means reading, guys, folks, women, men. When we get down to that bare bones, brass tacks of how do we pay the bills? How do we pay our public servants? What's the answer? How do you figure that out? And how do you do it fairly? And even Hale versus Hinkle talks about that we receive nothing from the state except for the protection of our rights and our property and that kind of stuff. Okay? So how are we going to pay that? How are we going to pay the senators, representatives? How are we going to pay the sheriff, the county commissioners? How are we going to pay the justices of the peace? We could say, well, that goes on the covers by the loser of the case, pays the bills to cover the cost of the justice of the peace. Sure, okay. But other than that, your public servants, how do you propose we pay them? I mean, there's supposed to be a just compensation there. Now, I get that for the most part, they're not supposed to be on duty 24/7. This is not supposed to be a career job. And in history, they've always had their own business and form of survival. Income. I hate using that word income because it's another shit made up term. But would say just compensation, right? Survival. How they would make their money to survive, right? But I remember way back in the day, it was all about working the land for food. I mean, they didn't have cell phones and laptops and desktops and computers, and they didn't have internet, and they didn't have all this other stuff going on. So what was it they had to do to survive was food. That was like the main focus on just about everything back then. Food. And when back then, when life was a lot more simpler, things were a lot easier too, to a certain extent. As all you had to do was work the land and build things. Pre-industrial revolution, where we used animals to work the land. I mean, have chainsaws to cut down trees. We had hand saws there for a while. It started coming in. We didn't have chainsaws. Everything was pretty much El Manuel labor. Right? Diesel D's, good to see you, brother. Yeah, you want a glimpse of the life back then, watch all the Western TV shows on Me TV. But yeah, good old Western shows. Even like Little House on the Prairie. There's a glimpse of a life pre-industrial revolution. Yep. Oh, that I agree. Again, with Diesel D's out here on Telegram, we bitch and moan, but our settlers really had it rough. Yeah, you're damn right they did. A lot of people, some of them died on the boat coming over, like on the Mayflower, and then dealt with harsh, cold climate over here. And then, not to mention I know this might offend some people out there, so just a prerequisite, this is the truth, right? The Indian tribes out there, they were killing each other, at war with each other before anybody ever showed up here. And it's, unhospitable wildlands. And, another one out there is that there was treaties made, there was agreements made to help defend some of the Indian tribes that were being attacked by the more ruthless, barbaric, Indian tribes. We can't deny those facts. It's been well documented. You just have to want to go find it and read it and research it. Reading means reading, folks. Not everything that we were taught in school is true. In fact, I don't know, today, I have no idea. But I can tell you probably about 60% of what we were not taught. That's what's missing from history. And that some of it just flat out wasn't true. So, we're living in a time everybody who's alive today has never been taught the truth about much of anything. Well, except for this one elderly woman, she's like 106 or something. She was talking about that they were taught, when she remembers, she was taught that the earth was flat in grade school. I'm like, what? And then she remembers the change. So there's somebody out there that is alive that says, well, about that. Hi, Jax. There's Cece. Good to see you. Well, I see questions out there about the whole Mickey Klon incident. Well, I went and looked at the videos. They didn't serve. She didn't serve. That was after the fact. And they were warned about the decorum. And they don't... come on, people. Decorum is about common decency and respect and remain in honor. People out there getting all upset because they only get 2 minutes or 3 minutes to address. Well, what about your right to petition or to remonstrate? Why don't you learn about your rights? You want to claim and exercise your rights? No man is above the law here. That's the whole point of doing a remonstrance. That's the formal written protest. That's how we're supposed to protest. All the stuff you want to say, put it in writing. It's called a remonstrance. That's a formal written protest declaring something unlawful is about to happen or something unlawful has already happened. We remonstrate, we protest, we declare because this is unlawful because. I'm just so blown away at these people out there that think they know what they're doing out there and then boast about what they didn't actually do and lie about it to try and make themselves look, oh, well, they all ran out. No, they did not all run out after you served them. That's not true. I watched the video footage. He said meeting is adjourned, and then they all walked out because you were disruptive of the meeting. You violated decorum. You didn't remain in honor. You don't speak out of turn. You know, some people don't get this, but some of you may have to learn the hard way. You don't have the right to disrupt a meeting. Anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's a governmental meeting. I mean, how would you feel if you were hosting a meeting and somebody just started talking out of turn and talking over the top of you at your meeting? Well, how would you feel? Would you want to throw them out of there because they're disruptive of your meeting? Come on, folks, put yourselves in their shoes. Yeah, I know, I get they're corrupt and all that. That's great. But let's get back to some, a frequent reoccurrence to fundamental principles. Oddly enough, how many of you heard me talk about that one? It's in the Arizona Constitution. The one woman there read straight from the Constitution about having a frequent reoccurrence to fundamental principles. What, you don't think the law applies to everybody equally? Come on. Got to remain in honor, people. Even if you don't like them, that's the key to all of this. Those without sin may cast the first stone. You can't go in there and trespassing the law, violating decorum and common decency and respect, and then turn around and accuse them of crimes. When your hands are dirty. It's called the clean hands doctrine now. That's what those without sin may cast the first stone is morphed into the clean hands doctrine. You don't have clean hands. It's like you've been out there in the back pasture giving suppositories to cattle all night or all day, and then want to come into the courtroom here and with all your bovine feces up to your elbows stinking up the courtroom. Get that bullshit out of here. Stinking up the place. It's in the Illinois Constitution too. All right, cool. It's not in our Idaho Constitution. But again, our Idaho Constitution is a corrupt constitution. It's not a legitimate constitution to begin with, and it most certainly is not Republican in character. But, again, folks, this is part of the reason why I'm here, right? Trying to educate the people on what the law is. Some of it as it is written. Okay, most of all of what I show is as it is written. That is one of the big differences between me and just about everybody else out there. I actually show the letter of the law on the screen. In my free educational series, read straight from the law. Okay? Blackstone's commentaries on the law of England, Constitution, Bills of Rights, historical documents, I show the actual document on the screen. We read from it. And then we discuss it. And I love when people, after I do something like that, they're like, oh, well, that's your opinion. No, these are facts of law. It's not my opinion. I just showed you the letter of the law as it is written. Now, whether or not you can comprehend that, you have the intellect to read and comprehend what you read, well, that is a different story. Nope. Asking me to talk about the American State National. I've already talked about it on here. I've already debunked American State National. It's on the National Assembly website. I've posted the verbiage again out here. What's that guy's name? Fast Freddy or whatever his name is out there. Dave Apex. He sent me a email on that. I went over there and listened to that, dealing with Anavon rights and all that, American State National stuff, and I just copied and pasted it over there, and put it together. But he wants me to come on and do a show with him, so to go over that. I mean, it's simple. Let's make this real simple. The word national, as a noun, did not come into existence until 1887. You want to tell me where your source of law is for national? And I'm saying law. The word law must be in there. Like law of nations doesn't mention anything about national. Okay? You're not going to find it in any law. You're not going to find it in any law of the land. You're not going to find it in any law of the nations. You're not going to find it in any law of nature. You're not going to find it in the common law. Oh, well, I guess you might find it in the Roman civil law, the code. So there is that. But we all know about Roman civil law, right? Roman. Are we Romans here? Is this the Roman Empire? No. Then why in the hell are we using Roman civil law? Doesn't belong here. This has been a fight for 1,000+ years. Why are we still dealing with this? Like I've said, if I have anything to do with this and writing some new constitutions and that kind of stuff, I'm going to make sure that that gets in there, that the Roman civil law is forever abolished and it shall not ever come back. Period. No more Roman civil law. Let's bury that sucker deep. Burn it to the ground. Get rid of them Justinian Pandex and all that garbage. No. Let man be free. Let man be independent of all things created by his fellow man, unless he gives his own consent. A contract. Period. End of discussion. Let's get back to the Saxon way of our fundamental law as common law, maxims of law and customs. Customs are our rights as the law. Because right and law are synonymous. They mean the same thing. It comes from the French word droit, meaning right or law. So, there's the whole thing right there. What is the law? Rights are the law. All the rights that we have in common is the common law. And where there is a right, those rights impose a duty that we have in common, right? Someone owes us a duty to respect those rights, like the right to freedom of speech. Nobody out there can deprive that right without just cause. But so many people think the right to freedom of speech is really has to do with freedom of speech and debate, or to, go on a street corner and preach religion or that kind of stuff. And you have that right to freedom of speech. I get it. But really, the main right, when you're talking about, like right now, this is the right of the press that I'm actually exercising right now. Or what we call media sometimes now. But it's the right of the press to publish. So, on your social media, you're actually exercising the right of the press, not the right of freedom of speech. Okay? You're publishing something, whether it's in writing or it's verbal. So libel and slander. Imagine that. Just because we go into the digital age and we do this on a computer now instead of, in a newspaper. Doesn't change the right. See, it's a fundamental principle. Just because everything else changes around it doesn't actually change what the principle is, which is the right of the press to publish. So we have to be responsible with that and not committing libel and slander. So even under the freedom of speech and the press, there is a clear distinction. And then, again, good to see you, Brother Michael. Haven't seen you in a while. I was actually thinking about you the other day. I was looking at some of these books. I'm like, man, I haven't heard from Michael in a long time. See you out here on Rumble, brother. Oh, man, where was I going? Oh, with freedom of speech stuff. Now, a lot of people have a hard time with this when you go on to somebody else's what's called intellectual property. That means that they're the creator. Like my Telegram channel. Like every channel that you're on right now watching. Rumble. I had to create that. Okay? YouTube. Facebook. All of it. I had to create it. And this is my content. My intellectual property. Now, because it's my intellectual property, nobody else can trespass on my property. And I have the right to kick people off. Okay? If I don't like something that you're publishing there, then I have the right to remove that because this is my property. I'm not violating your right to freedom of speech. I'm not stopping you from going outside, going to the street corner and preaching all you want. I'm also not stopping you from creating your own Telegram channel, your own Facebook page, your own YouTube channel, your own Rumble channel, and posting whatever the heck you want. I'm not depriving you of the exercise of your right to freedom of speech. How about that? That's how that right works. Intellectual property. And when you trespass upon another man's property, they have the right to kick you off. That's just fundamental principles. It's not your property. You don't have any rights there to dictate to the owner what you or anybody else publishes on their property. Now, some of you may already know this, so preaching to the choir, but cool. Yeah. Thank you, Brother Michael. I see your comment there. I'm looking good. I'm starting to look a little old. I'm getting old. Maybe I just need a break. But something else I wanted to actually start off and talk about with something that Trump was talking about there. My brother Jonathan Alexander out there, he had recorded it off the TV, Fox News. And Trump was given a pretty good speech out there. It was only like 16 minutes, but Trump was talking about how corrupt the courts are and that he's being an example. That's not the exact word he used, but I wish I could remember what it was. But he was talking about how he's going through all this stuff, and that he's only going, well, not that he's only going through this, but he's going through this to, that everybody else has been subjected to this before. And he was talking about presidential immunity. And that no president or former president should be prosecuted for criminal stuff, that they should have some immunity there, or he actually used the word absolute immunity or complete immunity. No. This is the whole reason why we have the impeachment process. So that we can remove public servants from office, elected officials. Okay? And that's a fair process. And again, people don't understand how that's supposed to work is why. Okay? This goes a long ways in understanding things when you answer the why. Because the way the king was doing it, he was just coming in and wiping out entire legislative houses. And appointing his own people. Those that were elected by the people. In the 1600s here, this is what was going on. And putting in his own people to enforce the king's edict, Roman civil law, the code. Okay? And plain and simple, no. Let's implement this process, law of the land, due process of law. That the only way to remove an elected official is through the impeachment process. And then they can be prosecuted for the crimes. Period. That's the why. Because the way the king was doing it before was unjust, unfair to the people who elected those members of the House, both Senate representatives. That makes up the whole House. So, there's a lot of whys behind some of this due process of law because of what the people were being subjected to. They had to figure out ways to put the power back into the people's hands and to keep it away from the king. And essentially, creating this one-of-a-kind form of government. But in essence, it's not really, it is a one-of-a-kind where all political power is inherent in the people. Well, to tell the truth, we, the people, haven't been properly assembled for quite some time. We, the people, haven't been able to exercise our political power for quite some time. It's been hijacked. It's been by the use of force and violence that it's been robbed, stolen from us by force and violence. So, just even reading in Lysander Spooner's essay on the trial by jury, it was Law of Nations. Law of Nations talking about how we have the right to control all that, even with the right of self-defense. And this is kind of a mixture between Blackstone's and the Law of Nations, where, we the people actually have the power to take up arms and stand up against the tyranny in our local area. Which goes back to our fundamental principles that the militia is composed of the body of the people themselves. That's Virginia Declaration of Rights, June 12, 1776. As our theoretical foundation of all government, or basis and foundation. Why it says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, because And it comes after that. Well, there's a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's because the militia is composed of the body of the people themselves first. And from that pool of the people is where we get the organized militia state level, organized militia federal, which is the military. So, I've seen a few comments out here, people asking about basically their personal cases. Okay, folks, if you got questions about personal cases and stuff, that's over on Patreon. You want my personal private time, one-on-ones with me, conversations, you want direct answers to questions of your own case. I'm just here to educate people on the law and bring some news. It's all about education and news, okay? Otherwise, I've got the free educational series out there on YouTube. You're more than welcome to go watch the free educational series out there. If not, you can, you want to learn other things. Some of the things that I teach in the private over there through Patreon, Wednesday night workshop. Okay, you can go to my website, kirkslawcorner.com. And upper left-hand corner there, I have links to all my social media stuff. And in the middle one there is Patreon. There's also a link down in the middle of the body. So Patreon is where I do all that kind of stuff now. Instead of trying to answer each individual question, which most of them are loaded questions to begin with, and would take extensive time to give an answer to those particular questions regarding your own personal case. See, this is much bigger than just one man or woman. Some of this even is worldwide. Some of the education that I bring, like the laws of nature, per the law of nations, or I should say law of nations per the law of nature, because the laws of nature dictate this first. That's that body of law, jurisdiction, that should be at the root of all other law. And any other law that would come in conflict with that would be void for any effect, because which one stands on a higher plane? The laws of nature or anything else? I mean, we have to establish a hierarchy here. Which one stands on a higher plane, folks? Let's just do a little bit of logic and reason here. I think the laws of nature should be the highest and most paramount law of all law. If there's ever going to be any kind of law that man would declare as being in a hierarchy of law, the laws of nature. But see, the laws of nature already dictate that from God, the Creator. Right? Plain and simple. If God created man and all things, He's the one that creates the law. That's the sovereign. The sovereign is the Creator. So that makes God the sovereign. All right, yeah, back to the Trump stuff. So Trump talked about this stuff that's going on, and he's laying this out. He's trying to wake people up and exposing, because how many people are paying attention to Trump versus, well, let's just use me. How many people are here paying attention to me right now? And me talking about the corruption in my case. I mean, like even clear back with Chris, even my brother Tony Pellegrino, Lee Arthur Rice. These are men that I've worked with here on a local level that we've come together and we tried to do something about some of this stuff and do some of this stuff in our own personal cases and help other people, try to educate them, help them do paperwork. And this is what we've all found here is, you help people do their paperwork and then they go into court. They don't even know the law. They don't know their own paperwork. And the judge starts asking them questions about the paperwork and they're testing them is what they're doing. And they know nothing about it. And then want to say, oh, well, your paperwork didn't work. No, it's you that didn't work. Okay, it's like putting money in the Coke machine and you're pushing the button. Well, I put the money in there. How come you didn't get the Coke? Is it the machine's fault or is it the one that put the money in? No. I've put in my labor, just like Tony Pellegrino, just like Lee Arthur Rice. There's many other people out there, same thing, have put in their time and learned this stuff and trying to defend themselves by doing the paperwork. And, even us, right? Sometimes we don't get relief as demanded. Well, that's because they're corrupt. Some people will say, well, you haven't won any cases. Well, yeah, actually I have. In fact, aside from this case right now, I've basically been 4-0. 4 wins, 0 losses over the last 4 cases that I've, taken control of my life, and I don't hire a member of the bar anymore. And then there's even a couple of things before that. A couple of contempt of courts and family court. A couple of domestic violence protection orders. Yeah, I've got some wins, folks. So anybody out there telling you that I don't even have one win, they're full of crap. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. Because yes, I have. And there's people in my Patreon and in Wednesday Night Workshop that have prevailed in their own cases. Because learning from me. So, there's that truth. Again, back to Trump. Sorry, guys. The fact is that a lot of people are watching Trump. I mean, there's a few people here watching. I got, 63 over there, and I don't know. Can't even tell over here on any of these. Looks like 37 over here. And I'd have to count these. I wish it would tell me, and I know other people could probably see how many people are on Telegram, number-wise, but there's, 15, 20 people there. So we're a little over 100 people watching right now. So that's 100 people. Now, how many people are paying attention to Trump? And what's going on with Trump? Oh yeah, these watching the cases and the judges' rulings and how corrupt things are, and what's he talking about? Kangaroo courts. He's talking about denying the right to due process of law, his right to trial by jury. Okay? How many of you all out there have been subjected to something, especially in the family law realm of things? Okay, traffic tickets. There's another one, example. You don't get a right to a trial by jury, but you're being deprived of your property. You were deprived of your life, your liberty, and your property. Life as in freedom of choice, that right of personal security. Then personal liberty and personal property, or private property. Those are those 3 absolute rights from law of nature, the 3 primary fundamental absolute rights, that anything that would come in conflict with those would be void for any effect. Okay? So that's that hierarchy that I was just talking about. But this is what Trump is doing. He's going through all this stuff to wake the people up. Because I know for a fact that there are people out there, or were people out there, that really haven't been subjected to the corruption to the extent where they're aware of it. And, I've heard this before. Well, just don't break the law. What law? Well, they think the Idaho Code is the law. Don't break the law, and you won't have any problems. Well, what they don't realize is they're that good little slave and, pay all their taxes. And, most of those kinds of people are people that make enough money to pay all their taxes and pay for their fancy house and cars and all these toys and everything like that. And they're never really subjected to the corruption. Oh, and then oh, well, yeah, okay, I got pulled over for speeding and I just paid the ticket. Okay, where did that money go? Who did it go to? Who's the injured party? I get the one side of it where People think that they're guilty of speeding. What the hell is speeding? You're going too fast. Says who? What's too fast? What's speeding? Who did that hurt? Oh, you went across the line. Oh, is the line the victim? Did I injure the line? How much is it going to cost to fix that line on the pavement? Or on the concrete? Yeah, on the interstate. How much is it going to cost to fix that line? Oh, it didn't do any damage to it. So there's no actual damages. So who's the injured party? Who's the real party in interest here? Oh, well, this is prosecution by information under the Roman civil law. That's how the Roman civil law works. These are all bills of attainder and bills of pains and penalties. There's a promised award, an award that is promised prior to any complaint or conviction of any sorts, which is already in the English Bill of Rights of 1689. That's what's in there, was promising an award prior to any judgment or conviction. So that's exactly what we're talking about in the Constitution now. We that no bills of attainder. Bills of attainder are prohibited, both federal and state. Article 1, Section 9, federal, no bills of attainder. Article 1, Section 10, to the states, prohibitions on the states, no bills of attainder. But they members of the bar there, who love their Roman civil law, the code, because that's where they're from the Roman Catholic Church, holding the title of nobility of Esquire. Make no mistake, that's a title of nobility from the crown. It's even in Bouvet's Law Dictionary. Esquire is a title of nobility from the crown. And it even says in there that it's prohibited by our Constitution. Yeah, that would be Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8, no titles of nobility. It's already the law of the land that can't be here. Period. No, code is Roman civil law, brother. I've discovered this by reading Blackstone's commentaries on the law of England. But Bouvet's Law Dictionary, 1856, see law, civil, is the Roman civil law, the code, the Pandex, and all this stuff. And it talks about the code. The code is Roman civil law. And this is what I'm talking about. It's all enforced by bills of pains and penalties, is what it says in Bouvet's Law Dictionary, 1856, under law, civil. And then in reading Blackstone's commentaries on the law of England, it says pretty much the same thing. Well, it was lost at the Lombard invasion and then rediscovered in 1130 at Amalfi. And then Blackstone talks about this King Stephen, usurper Stephen, and I went and discovered that in 1135. Now, my brother Rob has found some stuff out there that, we'll need to discuss this, Rob, because on one part it says he is responsible for it, and then the other part is it says that he's not, but he is. That's why they called him usurper Stephen. He usurped the common law and re-implemented the Roman civil law, even though what you have found says that he was against it. You got to remember who was in charge. The church. All under basically ecclesiastical law. And the church is the one that does the morals and principles, which is what you shared with me, was the priest there or whatever. What was it? I want to say, was it Papist or I don't know. Anyway, the priest or like the Pope or whatever is the one that essentially, supposedly, implemented that Roman civil law, the code, again. But this just goes to show in history that who's really in charge is the church. And this gets into why. And like I've said before and explained it this way, is so that they can continue to cover up their satanic child pedophile garbage, satanic rituals, all this stuff, because, well, if they're the ones that are in charge, they're the ones that are making the law, they're the ones that are enforcing the law. If anybody were to come along and say, hey, well, you're violating the law, well, we're above that. And by the way, we'll just... Bouvet's Law Dictionary, 1856, Bill of Attainder, legislation, comma, punishment, period. So any legislation that prescribes a punishment is a Bill of Attainder or Bill of Pains and Penalties. This, again, goes back to the English Bill of Rights of 1689 about promising an award prior to any judgment, right? Now, see, that's all bar speak, bro. That's what the bar wants us to believe. Well, it inflicts a punishment upon without trial by a jury. No. That's not what a bill of attainder is. Here, you've been attained to pay this bill. Okay? And again, it's in Bouvet's Law Dictionary, 1856, that the code is enforced by bills of pains and penalties. So this is where I've been reading and studying and figured this out, putting them pieces of the puzzle together. That's the bar speak. They want us to believe that, oh, well, a felony, bill of attainders or felonies that, prescribe a punishment of, like, say, death or whatever, without any normal trial. No. Don't look at the fact that this is code. Don't look at the fact that this is Roman civil law. And this is how the code works, is it's all enforced by bills of attainder, bills of pains and penalties. When you look in there, doesn't it say a certain amount of jail time and a fine? That's how you tell. That's how you tell if it's a bill of attainder. It's legislation that prescribes punishment. That's the true definition of a bill of attainder. So when you look at any kind of legislation that says, if you do this, speeding, here's a fine. That's a bill of pain and penalty. Okay? Keep it simple. All that other stuff is all bar speak, word salad, trying to diminish and pull us away from the fact that this is all Roman civil law, the code. And that these are all bills of attainder and bills of pains and penalties. For example, murder. Where does that come from? Doesn't that come from thou shalt not commit murder? How about thou shalt not steal? Thou shalt not bear false witness. Okay, so no lying, no stealing, and no committing murder, acts of violence. Okay, do we need any legislation for that? No, it's all common sense, right? Period. Let me see what we said. Right, but it's more than that. So, like, let's take mine. Resisting and obstructing. Or delay. Because they dropped the resisting part or obstructing part. And they said, well, it was a delay. It still prescribes that it could be up to 6 months jail. Or no. Up to a year in jail? 6 months jail and $1,000 fine. So, again, that prescribes a punishment prior to. And then again, where does that money go? Who am I going to jail for? What's the damages here? Where's the actual damages? And then who's receiving that just compensation? Well, they are. It all enriches themselves. There's no injured party. This is all back to Roman civil law, the code, and prosecutions by information enforcing bills of attainder and bills of pains and penalties. But the whole key to it is the word code. United States Code. Code of Federal Regulations. Uniform Commercial Code, Idaho Code, Revised Code of Washington, RCW. That's your code. It's all code, folks. This is all Roman civil law. They've altered the fundamental law. Back to what the Declaration of Independence said, is that, subjecting us to a jurisdiction foreign to our form of government, unacknowledged by our law, and being subjected to pretended acts of legislation. That's exactly what they were talking about. This code, that jurisdiction, that body of law, the Roman civil law as a jurisdiction that's foreign to our form of government, that's unacknowledged by our law. Yeah. Yeah, I agree there. The judicial industrialized complex. Well, it's like what we called it back in the day, weaponized family court, weaponized courts. And now it's weird because that's a word that's being used out there now. Weaponized courts and weaponized government, weaponized FBI, weaponized this, weaponized that. It's like, wow. Wow. Some of these words that, that we used on the show many years ago are now coming out and being used today, because that's what it is. But the reality, again, is they've altered the fundamental law. And Blackstone's commentary on the law is the one that really exposes this, is that the three basic fundamental laws. You have the Roman civil law, you have the feudal law, and then you have the common law. So that's your three basic fundamental laws. And our fundamental law here in America is supposed to be the laws of nature, the common law. Well, even in Bouvet's Law Dictionary 1856 there, talks about how the Roman civil law, the code, is opposed to the law of nature, to the law of nations, and the common law. So there you go. Right in Bouvet's Law Dictionary 1856, law, civil, just totally blows this wide open and exposes the truth about the code. It is a fundamental, and Blackstone reiterates this, Roman civil law is opposed to the laws of nature, to the law of nations, and to the common law. It's a totally different body of law, a different jurisdiction. Juris is law, diction is words. So jurisdiction is a body of law. Like we have admiralty jurisdiction. What are the words of admiralty? Where does that apply? You got territorial, you got subject matter, you got personal. Who does it apply to? Who has the authority to make it? Who has the authority to enforce it? That's the thing. When we talk about fundamental law, it becomes that hierarchy, the foundation. So that's it. I mean, the whole thing has been corrupted by the bar. That's the full key to understanding all of this. That the American Bar Association was created in 1878. Now, I found in my Idaho legislative session laws, well, they call it session laws, but it's legislative session. The fact is in 1881, in the 11th legislative session, that they implemented the Code of Civil Procedure. And we think that that's like, for civil procedure, rules of civil procedure in a civil case. No. Because we already had the Criminal Practice Act and the Civil Practice Act in 1864, in the first legislative session. That was done good from there. No, the code, as it says in the third section of this so-called act, it says that the the principle of the common law that statutes and derogation thereof must be narrowly construed, but does not apply, and the code is the law. The code is the law. So think about that for a second. If the code is opposed to the law of nations, the laws of nature, and the common law, and the Constitution is part of the common law of the land, right? Because law of the land is actually common law of the land, just leaving off the word common. And that's in Blackstone's Commentary on the Law of England. It's in Lysander Spooner's essay on trial by jury. Talks about common law of the land. It puts those words together. So the fact is that's what that is the common law of the land. Rights as the law. Why is it declarations of bills of rights, declaring the law, laying down the law? And then we have the Constitution, which is the instrument of government, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted. Why is it that the Bill of, technically speaking, all throughout history, a Bill of Rights was separate from the Constitution? Why is it this federal Constitution has a separate Bill of Rights, and then not only that, it's after the fact? Because all of those rights, even Hale versus Hingle, our rights are long antecedent to the formation of the state. So, yeah, again, we're talking about laws of nature. These rights as law, okay, pre-existed any kind of thought of government, because that all happened in creation in the very, very, very beginning as a fundamental body of law of nature. Naturally, fundamentally, and principally. We're supposed to be free. God created us free and gave us dominion. Genesis 1:26 through 28. Freedom, free dominion over the land, the air, and the water, but not over other men. He gave us dominion over the animals, the plants on the land, the fowl of the air, and the fish of the water. Now they tried to change some of them words in there and say, well, it's of the sea. Oh, so any lakes or rivers here inland, we wouldn't be able to pull the fish out of there and eat them? Doesn't make any sense. It's fish of the water. This is where you get into land, air, and water. The origin of the word law. Law of the land, law of the air, and law of the water. Imagine that. That God would do that right there. Land, air, and water. Law of the land. Why is it called law of the land? Because God gave us dominion over the land. And all the animals and everything, right? But that doesn't mean that we should be destroying it. We should be cultivating it. We should be making it work to our benefit. Right? I mean, in that common sense, is that logical? Is that reasonable? That we should do that? Being God gave us that power to assume, like the Declaration of to assume the powers of the earth. What are the powers of the earth again, folks? Wouldn't that be that earth, wind, fire? What's the other one there? Land, air, water. Yeah, oh, there you go. Earth. Oh yeah, and air. There it is. And then the fifth element is love. You know, remember the movie Fifth Element? What was the fifth element? Love. Love thyself as you love thy neighbor, or love thy neighbor as you love thyself. Why is that? So that's that's the whole key to all of that hierarchy and understanding what comes first, right? What comes first? Who's on first? Well, what's on second? No, who's on first? Assuming the powers of the earth. We have that. We have that right. Well, you can't do that. You can't put up your own thing and collect electricity out of the air and power your own house, what we would now call off grid. No, yes we can. That's it. That's in the good book, folks. That's the good book, the good law. Huh. Right? It's to secure our survival. That's right. It's foraging for food. It's again, assuming the powers of the earth. Who is any other man to dictate to another man what he can and can't do? I mean, where did we lose sight of that fundamental principle? Yeah, two men standing toe to toe, standing next to each other. Which one has higher authority? Neither. And it doesn't matter what disguise they are wearing. And I use the word disguise because that's what they use in the code under 18 USC 241 there. Or is it 242? Going out on the streets and highways in disguise. That's called clothed with authority. Or color of authority or color of official right under the Hobbs Act. Because the maxim of law, what I cannot do in my person, I cannot do through the agency of another. If I can't do it, I can't ask another man to do it. So, yeah. Should be common sense, right? If I can't do it, I can't get my neighbor to do it. Like, can I commit murder? No, thou shalt not commit murder. Well, can I get my neighbor to do it for me? Because then I'm not committing murder. Well, but he is. So, well, let me put this disguise on and I'll put a badge on and then it's okay because now I'm clothed with this authority. But we can't delegate a power we do not possess ourselves first. And an agent has to have a principle to act on behalf of. So, who are they acting on behalf of? The reality is the state, the corporation, which is actually the bar. Right? They've essentially infiltrated every single branch of our so-called Republican form of government here. And, there's a sufficient number of members of the bar in the legislative branch that controls all that. And then you have a member of the bar behind every executive agency sitting over there in a corner, some of them multiple ones, for any questions of law. Because nobody knows the frickin' real law anymore. It's all code. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about rights as law. It's all about their code. And then basically the entire judicial branch, you got to have a license to practice law. And I'll reiterate this for some people out there, the trolls. The fact is I've already had 3 different judges now in court and on the record openly admit, I've basically forced them to admit it, that the so-called bar license is a membership card. It is not a license. Okay? Like Chris and I used to talk about is, well, where do you go to get a license? From the Secretary of State. Well, who issues this so-called bar license? What? Oh, would that be that private membership association here in Idaho called the Idaho State Bar Association? It's an association. That's not government. Most certainly not legitimate government. And that's not the Secretary of State, so how are they issuing licenses? It's a membership card to an association, just like the National Rifle Association. I mean, if you get your membership card from the National Rifle Association, do we have the power to, I don't know, is it a license to kill? I mean, what is that license? A license to practice killing? The license to practice what? I mean, if we're going to establish a fundamental principle here that associations issue licenses to practice something, what do you practice with the National Rifle Association? And then it goes back to this membership card to the association, the so-called license to practice law. What law? Oh, that's Roman civil law. That's why. They only want members of the bar practicing Roman civil law that hold the title of nobility of esquire. Because they want us practicing the code, Roman civil law, and not the common law, the laws of nature and the law of nations. Because again, the Roman civil law is opposed to that. It's a completely different, really, it just fundamentally alters the foundation and the whole form of government at its root, the main body of law, the fundamental law. And that's why many of you heard the same thing. Well, the Constitution, it doesn't apply here in my courtroom. In whose courtroom? They say my courtroom, as in theirs. Aren't these supposed to be the people's courts? Didn't the people create these things? No. Again, that's what I found in the Idaho Code. Title 1, Section 1, Chapter 1, Section 101. Enumeration of courts. The Supreme Court, the Appellate Court, the District Court, and the Magistrate Division of the District Court. And it cites that Code of Civil Procedure Act of 1881, Section 17. You mean it's not created constitutionally? No, it's created under the code, the Roman civil law. We don't care about your common law of the land, the Constitution. It's opposed to that. It's a complete different body of law, different jurisdiction. Sorry, we don't recognize that jurisdiction over there. That's what's been going on, folks. We're being subjected to these Roman civil law courts under the code. I mean, some states try to hide it really good, but Idaho, we're just blatant. Idaho Code. Washington, Revised Code of Washington. And then you get into what... I think it was Blackstone's in there talking about the canon law. That the canon law is part of the code too. The Roman civil law. Well, of course, because that's the Roman Catholic Church, the Crown Temple Bar, the court. And they had their judicial canons. Well, let me ask you something. If all of our public servants included what we would call judges, which should be magistrates, if they're all bound by the Constitution, Article 6, Clause 3, right? All the aforementioned senators and representatives and all the members of the state legislature, all of the executive and judicial, both federal and state, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. They're bound by the Constitution, right? They're not bound by the code. They're bound by the Constitution. So why are they practicing Roman civil law, the code. Plain and simple, folks. But this is in part what's going down, folks. And, I've talked about how many different people have already been executed. It's getting real close, folks. It's getting real code. Or, real code. I was just reading a comment over here. Code is Roman civil law. Anyways, it's getting real close. And, I've been saying this for quite some time. Oh, here we go again. Another one of those trolls out here. Oh, but can we talk about Trump's approval of the red flag laws, his approval of civil asset forfeiture, police impunity, bump stock ban? The president doesn't do that. That's Congress that does that. And then let's clarify this, because this is part of that fundamental alteration or form of government where the executive branch is hijacked and they're making their own law stuff. So the bump stock ban, that was done by the Bureau of Tobacco and Firearms, right? BTAF. Tobacco, Alcohol, and Firearms. They're the ones that did the bump stock ban. Not Trump. Wrong answer, dude. That's all you're doing is regurgitating mainstream media verbiage with no truth. Fake news, dude. Trump doesn't do any of that. President doesn't do any of that. Sure, the president is supposed to have veto power, but who makes it? Who creates it? Who votes it to pass it? But see, this even, there you go, back to our corrupt Attorney General there, Barr. But he made the comment out there about how these are, interagencies. That they're created by the legislative branch, but then they go over to the executive branch to execute, and then they start exercising powers that properly belong to the legislative branch. Well, this is the way it was back in the Magna Carta and all this stuff before we had three distinct branches of government, that the legislative and executive were merged. And really, it all came from the king. Yeah, we had a parliament over there, but the king was in charge of the executive as well as the legislative. And then you got the king's bench. So really the king just kind of controlled all what we would consider all three branches of government now. But prior to our form of government, essentially there was only two branches of government. But this is exactly what's going on now. This is the reason why they have all those members of the bar sitting over there in the corner behind every executive agency, because they're the ones that are making their internal policy. But you have to pay attention and listen and learn and go, oh, well, no, that's coming from give me. No, that didn't come out of Trump's mouth. Not like you're saying it did. Okay? And okay. Now, this is the trickery. What was Trump said? What Trump said there, and I remember specifically about the so-called red flag laws. He was talking about, and he was given reference, and he was told about how the one guy in that one shooting there, that he was reported to the FBI and investigated like up to 5 times. Or was it 3 times? I don't want to misspeak on this, but I know that it was multiple times, and that went to his house and talked to him and all this, supposedly did this investigations 3 different times at a minimum. And then he ends up shooting somebody. And that's when Trump said, hey, if you got something like that, go in and take the guns first and then deal with it. Okay? That was the situation where he had publicly made threats of violence to shoot people. And it was reported and investigated. See, you're taking things out of context. That's what the mainstream media does, and that's what you've done here. You brought all this stuff forward thinking that it's true. It's a half-truth because you were not telling the whole story, the whole truth. And that's what's going on. Yeah, I get it that's on record, but you're not telling the whole truth. What was the situation? What was it that was proposed to Trump as the problem, and what to do about it? See, you're like, well, Trump said that. Take the guns. That's a red flag law. But what was the intent behind it? What were the facts behind that response? Because that was a response. Trump didn't just come right out of the blue and say, oh, we need to take everybody's guns. That's what the mainstream media wants you to believe, which is what makes you a troll, because you didn't do your own research and you're trying to come here and ask all these stupid questions when you should already know this. If you'd done your due diligence and done your own research, no. You watched mainstream media play a little tiny clip of Trump saying, go in and take the guns first and then deal with it later. But what was the pretext before that? What was that actually all about? That was the response to the question about, well, what do we do when you have people out there making threats of violence to go shoot up a school? Go in and take the guns and then figure it out. Because now you have probable cause of action. Somebody's made a threat of violence. Gee, that would be common law under breach of peace. That is an assault, a threat of violence. And that's threat of murder. And then you're talking about it in a school. You're talking about innocent children. You don't think the commander-in-chief has the authority to protect the innocent children at school from a man who's publicly declared he wants to go in there and shoot it up? Come on. Have a little bit of forethought before you bring this garbage on my channel. Do your due diligence. Don't just be a talking piece for mainstream media. Fake news. And we all learned that by now. Come on. It's all owned and controlled by, 6 people. And I did that research back in 2014. Long before Trump came on the scene, and I was calling them fake news back then. The fact is that it's all owned and controlled by 6 people. At that time it was like 114 different mainstream media outlets worldwide, all owned and controlled by 6 people. Haven't you seen the little video clips out there where they take different news channels and they blend them together and they're all saying exactly the same thing? What a coincidence that is. How do you get that many news channels and reporters saying the same exact words in detail? Hello? Fake news. Right? Operation Mockingbird. There you go. Yep. Yeah, and still want to continue on with your bullshit. Kick rocks, dude. And you could say that you like my stuff and you're not a troll, but you are. Because you didn't do your due diligence. You didn't. Why are you asking me? Why didn't you do your own research? I mean, you're talking about stuff from like 6 years ago. You haven't figured it out yet? Yet you want to perpetuate fake news. What do you mean? I already talked about the bump stock ban. That was done by the Bureau of Tobacco, Alcohol, and Firearms, the BTAF. They're the ones that did the ban on that. That was an executive agency that did that, not Trump. Not the president. Again, interagencies. This is what's been going on for a long time. This is back to like a two-branch government instead of a three-branch government, legislative, executive, and judicial, going back to the way it is under the monarchy, where you have the legislative and executive that are combined. That's what this is. And Attorney General Barr called them interagencies. This goes back to the Administrative Procedures Act. That's where this all got implemented, through the Administrative Procedures Act, where the executive branch is the one that's making the legislation, not the legislature. It's the executive branch. I mean, for example, right here in Idaho, okay, we have the Sunset Law. Every year, the executive branch has to submit their rulemaking, their policy, to the legislature for approval or denial. Now, see, in our Republican form of government, the legislature is supposed to create a statute that becomes the law of creation of the executive agency, and that statute gives the scope and authority of the executive agency and what their duties are to perform. The executive branch does not have the authority to make anything. The executive branch is supposed to execute the laws of its creation. That's how you can tell that this is all fraud. The bump stock ban, all of this stuff, done by the executive agencies under the Administrative Procedures Act. That's when that all got implemented, folks. That's how that fundamental alteration of our form of government happened and transferred the power from our state legislature, our public servants, elected officials, into non-elected bureaucrats like the FBI, the Bureau of Tobacco, Alcohol, and Firearms. When do we hold elections for those public officials? CIA, Bureau of Land Management, the Environmental Protection Agency. When do we elect those people? When do we hold those elections? Somebody want to explain to me where I'm missing those elections? Because I'd like to be informed of when those elections happen to elect those public servants. I'm not aware that we hold elections for, the EPA, the BLM, CIA, FBI, CDC, WHO. I mean, when do we hold those elections? That should be prima facie evidence right there on its face, what I'm talking about. And then you want to talk about civil asset forfeiture. Yeah, those are ill-gotten gains. If you're actively engaged in criminal activity, you're damn right. Those are ill-gotten gains, unjust enrichments. I mean, if you're involved in human trafficking, selling babies, selling organs, selling human organs, and you got this money and then we bust you, civil asset forfeiture, we're coming to take your stuff. Executive Order 13818. Those involved in serious human rights abuse and corruption. Blocking the property. That's civil asset forfeiture. It's exactly what's been going on since December 20th, 2017. taking down bad governmental regimes that are involved in corruption, serious human rights abuse. Imagine that. Worldwide. And that's what's coming here, folks. It's coming real soon. Ukraine's done, right? Ukraine's the world hub for everything you can think of under the sun. Human trafficking, men, women, and children for whatever purposes you can think of. Organ harvesting, whatever. Obviously, the sexual side of things. But, there's a lot more that goes on there. Slavery and all that good stuff. Okay? That stuff all happens all the time. But Ukraine is a world hub. Arms trafficking, money laundering, drug trafficking, biolabs. How come we're not hearing a whole lot about Ukraine anymore? It's already been taken care of. Some of this stuff's already been taken care of prior to that it even being leaked out into the media, because this is all a show being played out. Okay? Now, here's a good one for you folks over there. Can you cite, I don't know, can you cite 10 things that Trump did that was good? Because this proves how you're a troll. Because if you haven't been paying attention and you can't cite any positive things, and you bring in shit made up from mainstream media and talking points from mainstream media, then I know you're a troll. If you can't cite, I don't know, I'll give you 3. Can you cite 3 good things that Trump did? At a minimum. I can already tell by the comments that you've made that you're a troll. You're here for your talking points from mainstream media to bash Trump, when I know for a fact it's all a lie. It's a half-truth. You take the one part, like what he said about go in and take the guns and deal with the rest of it later. You forgot that's the response to the initial part. And then the bump stock ban and all that good stuff wasn't Trump. That's the facts. But you don't want to hear the facts because you're brainwashed and indoctrinated by the mainstream media, or you're just a flat-out troll from the deep state. Plain and simple. No. That's not articulating like you were articulating the bump stop ban, civil asset forfeiture, energy economy and no wars. No. Come on. The things that he did, what are the actions? Just like you brought those actions. What were the actions? And I don't know about no wars. You don't quite understand Executive Order 13818. And how right after December 20, 2017, they invaded Saudi Arabia. Yeah, that's right. War. And took down the bad governmental regime. I would say, no new wars? I don't know. We've essentially been at war for as long as you can think of. And I'm not talking in our lifetime. I'm talking for 1,000 plus years. 4,000 years. 4,000 BC and forward. We've been at nothing but war. We're always fighting one another. So, there's that. How about one of the first things it is pulled us out of the transnational, international organization. There's a thing, an action that he actually did. And yeah, under the economy, how about lower taxes, lower gas prices, fix the job market, right? Unemployment rate is the lowest it's ever been. The most employed rate for many different, they even broke it down into different races, nationalities. The highest it's ever been in history. So those would be actual details of economy. Yeah, how about that? Going after the child pedophilia ring stuff, the Satanists. How about the deep state, which is, the 12 families? Anybody? Anybody like that doing that? Put his life at risk to do this stuff like JFK did? How about going after the Fed? Sometimes referred to as the Federal Reserve. How about basically abolishing the Fed and moving everything under the Department of Treasury, including the IRS? This is what I'm talking about, folks. This stuff is already done. A lot of this stuff is already done. I've showed the bill in Congress about reestablishing the gold standard. It's coming. It's been in there for almost 2 years now. So think about that. Remember all the military planes that went over to the Vatican to retrieve all the gold? 650 some planes it took to retrieve all the gold that's been unlawfully stolen from us, held in trust. Yeah. There's something that Trump did. Got to be under that Executive Order 13818, civil asset forfeiture, because this is all done under fraud. All of the fraudulent bankruptcies. That's why Trump walked in front of the Queen. You want to sit here and talk about bump stock ban, civil asset forfeiture? No, I'm all for civil asset forfeiture, dude. That's how you pay the bills. And any of those any of the stuff that Trump's done, a lot of people don't want to talk about the truth about that. Mostly because they don't really know. Because they're too busy listening to mainstream media and regurgitating that garbage. Well, here's a good one. $22 trillion check from Department of Defense Secretary of Financial Division for payment of national debt. How about peace on the Korean Peninsula under Trump? Thank you, Mark and Michael out here on Rumble. Oh yeah. Ken over here on Telegram. Expanded Gitmo. Oh man, Gitmo's been new buildings and storage facilities. Massive buildings have been built at Gitmo to house all these people that have been gathered up worldwide, and there's still quite a few people to gather up. They're working on doing all those executions, and it takes some time to run them through the mill. Military. That's what I meant by mill. Again, this is a military operation. There are 2 federal directives for continuity of government, and amendments were made to the Uniform Code of Military Justice in 2016. Manual for courts martial, Trump did that in 2018. All this stuff, it's in writing. I've put it in videos. I've covered this before many times now. I've laid all this stuff out when it was coming out, clear back in 2017. Okay, September of 2017 when I started doing lives on Facebook. And right after that is when I started. I was like, oh, what's this? Jeff Sessions, breaking news about the prohibition on the use of guidance documents. Oh, would that be that executive writings making policy as guidance documents? Oh, yeah, Trump did an executive order on those too. On guidance documents. Trump's done a lot of stuff, folks, but this is a military operation, pre-planned before Trump. That's fact. Make no mistake. Oh yeah, there was another good one too. 17 hostages released under the Trump administration withdrew the United States from the job-killing Paris Climate Accord. Right. There was a lot of things that has been done under the Trump administration because this was part of the plan prior to. Okay? There's a 7-year plan there in that federal directive for continuity of government. We're at that 7-year delta. I'm telling you right now, it's coming. My guess is, honestly, that December 20th, 2017 executive order, 13818. That's the executive order, the most powerful one out of all of them that I've ever read. Not the executive order 13848, dealing with foreign interference in a federal election. Yeah, that's an okay one. But the main one is executive order 13818. That's going after, worldwide, anybody who is involved in serious human rights abuse and corruption. And it's directed at governmental regimes. So think about this for a second. If that executive order is for governmental regimes, and the proof's in the pudding already, Saudi Arabia, England, I mean, all these treaties, how do you do a treaty of peace if we're not at war? And it's because of that executive order. 13818. Okay? Yeah, time's up. The thing is how do you do a treaty of peace? We're not at war. Come on. That's how that works. We're getting down to the point, what's left? America. Okay? And that's what's coming, folks. It's time to take down the corruption in America. But like Trump said, this is much bigger than they thought. So my guess is that's why this has all been allowed to happen. One, because it does expose election. And like I've said before, election fraud has been around just as long as elections. This isn't something new under the sun or the moon or the dark. I mean, you have to use logic and reason here. Anytime you have a system built like that, say for elections, to elect somebody, there's always a possibility and chance of fraud. It's just good and evil. There's no way anybody can sit here and say, well, no. Every single election for everything, everywhere, whether you're electing a president through your corporation or board members or whatever, you can't tell me that there isn't a chance of some kind of fraud. Yeah. There's just a lot of things that have been happening right under our own noses because we've been brainwashed and indoctrinated and, just blinders put on. And I mean, read Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. Okay, the 8 different parts there. Take over the economy, take over the education, take over the medical field. It's just, that's exactly what's happened. There's the playbook. And then Art of War. There's another good one. The thing is that's what's happened. And all while, the way things have been made to this particular point, we've gotten to a point where, and now it's exponentially worse because the almighty doll hair is losing its value because it's going away. That's the United States Inc. fiat currency. We're going back to a gold standard, a gold-backed currency known as the rainbow currency. At least that's my understanding. My research over many years ago now. Someday, sometime soon. But once all this crashes, and my buddy Tony Franquito there, he talks about the money clock or whatever that thing is, the debt clock, and he knows how to read all that stuff. I don't. I'm not claiming to know how to read that. There's some of you that do, that get it. I don't. I haven't spent enough time on it at all. I think I've looked at it maybe 3 times in my entire life, and twice of it has been right here on the show. So I'm not gonna, here's me admitting that I don't know something, right? Because I don't. I don't have a problem admitting that I don't know something. But there's people out there that explain that certain parts of it say, look at this right here where this is going down, and then this is going up over here, and okay, I'm going to take your word for it because they know about it and I don't. So, yeah. Okay, George Carlin. Okay, this is a quote from George Carlin. Think of how stupid the average person is, and realize half of them are stupider than that. Yeah, and it's probably much worse than that. Common sense is no longer common. This is where I go back to, do you have to hit your thumb with a hammer to know that it's going to hurt? And there's some people out there that, what? Can't even understand the concept of what common sense is as a fundamental principle. But yeah, exactly. We've been generationally dumbed down, and that's the truth. That's part of one of the elements of Rules for Radical by Saul Alinsky, is to take over the education. That's what's happened, folks. Worldwide. This isn't just here in America, folks. The things that we're experiencing, the corruption and that kind of stuff here, it's happening everywhere. Worldwide. In some places, what we call third world countries, which is totally out of our comprehension. And unless you actually see it firsthand, you wouldn't believe it. But there are many what is called third world countries that they don't have electricity, they don't have plumbing, they don't have running water, plumbing, electrical. They just, and they're starving to death. but they seem to have enough energy to procreate. I guess because that's about all there is to do. But secret window is back today. Huh. That has to do with the secret window on the debt clock there. I don't understand it. And again, I've only been on there 3 times. I have not really spent any time on there, so I'm not going to begin to even speak on any of that because I have no information. I have no knowledge base. Thank you guys. Thank you. Rumble and Telegram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, X. Thank you all. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. God bless you all. And still trying, Mr. Troll J. Yeah, I'll just have to block you and remove you. Trump's red flag law statement wasn't about school, but if doesn't really matter. Okay, it wasn't a school. It was about a man who published on his social media that he was going to use guns to go shoot and kill people. That's what I recall, and I couldn't remember. It was. I swear it was at a school. I could be wrong. I'll go back and verify that. I'll go find it. Unless you have it. Means you're regurgitating mainstream media BS from 6 years ago. I don't care if you like my stuff or not. You're here bringing trollish, garbage, mainstream media regurgitation garbage. That's what makes you a troll. Because you're not doing your own due diligence and bringing truth. You're bringing fraud, false statements, mainstream media garbage, shit made up. That's what makes you a troll. You need to understand that. And again, back to what I was talking about in the beginning. This is my intellectual property, and I don't want that garbage on my channel. I don't like false, fake news garbage on my channel, and I shouldn't have to defend that crap if you'd have just done your due diligence and researched it yourself. Obviously, you researched enough to bring those talking points, which again is what makes you a troll. Because you're here to bring false statements and garbage, fraud on my channel. Woohoo, thank you, brother. Over there, 62 watching. Actually, it says 67 here now. May have changed since you started, or since you typed that. Oh, Brother Sean out here on YouTube says that the bump stock ban was over Vegas, right? And the red flags were over Parkland. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. The fact is it's the BTAF, or BATF, pardon me. That's why I was getting mixed up. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, or ATF, but it's Bureau. That bureau is the one that did the bump stock ban. That was not Trump. But people not quite grasping the concept of these what's called interagencies under the Administrative Procedures Act, which gave these executive agencies all the authority to make and enforce their own policy. But here's a reality check for you. Anybody ever tried to use one of them bump stocks? Just exactly how accurate do you think you can be with a bump stock? I can tell you right now, using a bump stock is going to severely drop your accuracy. Severely drop your accuracy. Dump Trump and come to the anarchy side. No thanks. No, I have a pretty good idea of what's really going on because I've done my own research. And the deep state is being taken down. The world satanic ritual pedophile ring, all of that stuff, that's all being taken down, guys. Many of them been executed, deep underground military bases, all this tunneling stuff that, in 2018, Trump said that he needed to have the military now you've done it. What about father of Vax that has killed Benny? Okay, that's going to get you banned, dude. Bye. Report, span, and delete all from Jay. Bye. That's how you get rid of the trolls, guys. It's just quick, easy, delete all the comments, ban them, and report them as spammers. Because that's all he is. He's just a troll. Okay? All frickin' talking points from mainstream media. Again, that's what makes a troll. No more troll. Yeah, I'm sure Trump made the vaccine in his back room. With all this spare time that he had, he made vaccines. But the truth is the original one that he was talking about that Trump was doing, not the Moderna, not the Pfizer, not the other one, Moderna, Pfizer, and I can't remember what the third one is, was actually basically like a saline solution with ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine in it. That was the proposed vaccine by Trump. But see, again, you'd have to do your own independent research and not just use talking points from mainstream media. That's how I can tell he's a troll. Oh, I like your stuff, but I'm a troll because I'm bringing mainstream media talking points without verifying anything other than what mainstream media said. That's a very, very true concern out there, Rumble, Mark. The dumbs may actually propose a serious problem to our integrity of the soil stability. We have to be careful about the massive tunneling under the land. Absolutely. You want to talk about, sinkholes. This is where that's been happening for a long time. All of a sudden, a whole entire street, just a big old hole collapses and, cars fall in it, whatever, because they're trapped right there. Whole buildings fall in the middle of the swamp, a big hole. Okay, that's because of those tunnels underground. So, yeah. Good point. Trump was lied to about safety and efficacy. We know this now. Right, yeah, Trump was lied to about their so-called vaccines out there. Oh, yeah. Johnson & Johnson, that was the other brand. Thank you, brother. Here, Warhorse for Liberty. Yeah, that's in part what's been going on with these, sinkholes. Is because that's tunnels deep underground collapsing. And again, this has been happening for hundreds of years. This isn't something new. Gee, I wonder where did all this extra dirt come from? No, I don't know. I'm just kidding. The mud flood, no, I don't know. Yeah, I know that this been put out there many years ago talking about the different three different layers of tunneling systems. You know, some of them 600 miles deep. At the very bottom one are old ancient stuff, and this is where you get into where the aliens are really at deep underground. They can't stand the light of day and the atmospheric air up here, so everything is controlled down low, and there's all different kinds of aliens living underground. You got good ones, you got bad ones. So that's a whole nother ball of wax over there that I try to stay away from and don't talk about much, like at all on here. I mean, that's probably one of the few times I've ever mentioned even aliens to begin with. Yes, I believe in aliens. I have personally seen a UFO a couple of times in my lifetime. I think one of the first times was back when I was about 12 years old, when I was hiking up at Mount Rainier in Washington. Free for Tay and Telegram. Underwater yellow submarine. Yeah, you remember the yellow submarine? Yeah. Yeah, my question, ultimate question out here, working with these guys, I'm trying to set up a show with Brad Miller and Mark Bashaw and probably Scott Lauterbaugh again, to get the four of us together here, and the Declaration for Military Accountability. How do you make a vaccine for something that doesn't exist? Now, see, I have the actual proof of that. I have my own FOIA request, or what we call here now a public records request, for proof of COVID-19's existence and that the PCR test can be used for that. No such records exist. And that's straight from the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. I've put that out there everywhere. Everybody should have a copy of that. And then I have a plethora of all these other FOIA requests worldwide, from the CDC, the WHO, departments of health, all over, from worldwide, right? For all these other viruses, HIV, Zika, nothing. It's the same answer. No such records exist. There's no proof of any of that. And then you go with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who went all the way to the Supreme Court challenging whether viruses exist or not. There's no proof, nothing. That was a hush, hush, hush. But that's in his book. Okay? The Truth About Dr. Fauci. Yeah. So there's all of that good stuff. And crap, I'm really going over tonight because I'm on a roll. But how do you make a vaccine for something that doesn't actually exist in nature? So that's, again, I go for the root of things. I ask the question all the way up, or all the way down to the very, very bottom of it. Where did this start? Oh, communicable disease. Prove it. Show me the science. The scientific tests. Well, the PCR, no, that can't be used for that. You got to use Koch's postulates or Rivers, which are the only two viable tests in the whole entire world that can begin to do a genome sequence of a minimum of 26,000 to 40,000 base pairs. Where is that? Where's the proof of that? Where's the genome sequence? Where's a picture of this damn thing? What's the measurements of this thing? Well, no such records exist. Well, how are you saying that people are dying from all of this, or people are being infected with this thing, but yet you don't even have pictures of it? You don't even have the dimensions of it? You don't have a genome sequence to prove the science behind any of this? And then you've got Dr. Robert Young out there on the international stage. No viruses exist. Plain and simple. It's all a hoax. It's all a lie. We're being lied to. It's all fear, false evidence appearing real. Because some jackwagon in a frickin' white coat says, oh, yep, this exists. The science. Well, show me the science. Well, no such records exist. So there is no science behind it. It's all just bullshit. That's what the real science is. Bovine feces. Yeah, there you go. It has a patent number. You can patent an idea. That doesn't mean that it actually exists. You just think it does. I put it down on paper, draw this thing out. I can patent it. You can patent an idea. People don't understand that. Just because there's a patent doesn't mean that it actually exists. And then, here's the real deal. You can't patent nature. Why do you think pharmaceutical drugs are all patented? And it's all, what? Synthetic. None of it is from nature. You can't patent nature. Because again, it's something that you create. Something that's your idea, your creation, your intellectual property. You can patent that. But something that created by God, you can't patent that. Can you patent water? Can you patent air? Can you patent soil? Can you patent a deer? Can you patent an elk? Can you patent a duck? And then this whole garbage theory is, well, we take all this vaccine stuff and then that's fundamentally altering you. So now you're a transhuman. No. Nice word salad. But here's the reality. If I go buy a Corvette, brand new Corvette off the lot, I take it home, I strip the fenders off and put these big fancy fender flares, change the wheels and tires, and heck, you know what, I don't even like the engine. I'm going to change the engine, and I change all this stuff and paint it, repaint it, and all that. Is it not still a Corvette? Just because I change a few things doesn't change the fact that it's a Corvette. All you're doing is meddling in something that you shouldn't be doing. Yeah, but that's just my realm, my logic, my thinking. They want you to believe that now they can have personal jurisdiction over this genetically modified man that's creation of God. Because, well, we altered a couple things. Yeah. All right, folks. I'm calling it a night. And God bless you all out there. Thank you all for being here. And yeah. If you wanna help support me, you can go over to Patreon. And oh, by the way, I've gotten a PayPal account set up. I've got to get all of that stuff for Kirk's Law Corner LLC. So once I'll get that put up there, and so you guys can make digital donations again, other than going through Patreon. But again, kirkslawcorner.com. If you want to get in on Wednesday night workshops to get into private classes and what I'm teaching over there in the private, that's through Patreon Tier 3. If you want one-on-one time, that's Tier 4. Okay? Otherwise, you can send donations over there to the office, 6477 West Fairview, Boise, Idaho 83704, and that's Suite G. Hopefully everybody can see that. Yeah, I think so. Here's that address right here. Any money orders, postal money orders, regular money orders, cashier's checks, any cash wrapped in aluminum foil, anything like that, gold, silver coinage, anything like that you want to send over to the office. That's the address there on the website. And for you folks over there in Wednesday Night Workshop, Tier 3, Tier 4, to get access to the recordings and stuff, on the back side here, there is still I haven't figured out why it's not coming through on the back side of the server side. But we've been working on it. You'll have a login, username and password to log in on the back side of this website. There'll be a certain part of this website, the back side, the private side, and you'll have access to all the videos and curriculum stuff through there. All right, so it's coming. We've been working on it. Miles and I spent about 3.5 hours the other day on it, and then Dave Canter and Miles worked on it for 3-4 hours plus. So, want to point out the library tab. We did get that fixed. Thank you, Miles. Lex Parliamentary Americana. There you go. It's back up and available. So you can get access to that. Lex Parliamentary Americana, the elements of the law and practice of legislative assemblies in the United States of America. It's taken too long. So that one's fixed. And I need to get Blackstone's Commentaries on the Law of England on here. Lysander Spooner's Essay on Trial by Jury. Man, that is such a good reading. I was reading on that today. So, some more on that today. So, anyways, that's it right there. Wanted to give, again, props to Miles for the website. And he's the one right here. Website by Miles. Divina.website. You can click on that and get to him if you need any assistance with your website or want to do a website. Hit him up. And then, of course, our weekly Thursday night call on the National Assembly, national-assembly.net. Conference call info, that's how you get into there. That gets you to the information. Right here is the link. There's tutorial videos here for your cell phones on YouTube, and then for desktop computer. Again, I highly recommend that you download and install the free conference call app, whether it's on your phone or your desktop. Now, for those of you who don't have smartphones or anything like that, no tablets, no desktops, no laptops, no computer of any kind, then you're reduced to a phone call. But you can still get in. And use *6 to mute and unmute. And please, please, keep yourselves muted over there. It's so annoying and disrupting. There you go, Decorum. To the call when people leave themselves unmuted, and it just disturbs the call. So yeah, we need to get reassembled here, folks. And I've showed this before and how to get over there. Um, here's that state national fraud that I was talking about, Mark, right there. I explained state national. I've laid it all out right here. Real law from the Law of Nations from Vattel. What a citizen is, what an inhabitants are, how the Articles of Confederation use the word free inhabitants, right? Doesn't say the free nationals, doesn't say American state nationals. And I've laid out the 3 different statuses here in this nation called America. 1 is free inhabitants. 2, the people, we the people, who are the business corporation owners, the taxpayers, paying the bills, to pay the emoluments of the office of government, citizens. Number 3 is citizens, which are the elected official, or those appointed, employed to a position of public trust. Heads of departments, etc. Public servants. Those are the citizens. So you got to go to real law regarding these definitions. The citizens are the members who are bound to this society by certain duties. That's the emoluments of the office. But he says, and subject to its authority, and they equally participate in its advantages. That's emoluments. Any advantage, profit, or gain received due to one's position, employment, or holding of office. So there you go. From the Law of Nations, as it is written. Law. International law. Definition of what a citizen is. And it coincides with Article 6, Clause 3. And the members and bound. I'll be darned, it's almost like our founders read the Law of Nations and wrote Article 6, Clause 3 in accordance with Book 1, Chapter 19, subsection 212, that the citizens are the members, the public servants, who are bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. They're not bound by the code. They're supposed to be bound to support this Constitution. And then again, I show the etymology of the word national, right? As a noun. Citizen of a particular nation from 1887. So it didn't come into existence until 1887. Gee, what did we do from, 1600 something to 1887? We called them citizens. We called them people. We called them inhabitants. I mean, I've even looked in my Ada County Sheriff's Manual, where it talks about the sheriff has the duty to call forth the inhabitants to defend. Why do they use the word inhabitants in the most current Ada County Sheriff Manual? Because that's the law. We're the inhabitants for the most part. I'm one of the people because I have a business license. I'm also an officer of the state. That's what this is all about right here. But when I'm off the clock, I still am man, creation of God. Not I am a man, a creation of God. No, I am man, creation of God. Get rid of the A. Real law, folks. Got to change the source of your education, your documentation. So, there's all that good stuff. All right. God bless everybody tonight. Thank you all for being here. And thanks for the likes, the follows, the shares. God bless. Have a wonderful night. And I'll be on next Monday night. And I'm not doing the Friday nights for a while. Again, I'm just getting too overwhelmed right now. And with Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, 4 nights a week. That's just too much for me right now. If I didn't have all this other stuff going on, sure. But Mondays and Wednesdays is good enough for me, and Thursdays. So I may just start, putting this presentations together and putting them together for Thursday nights instead of Friday nights. So God bless.